Good afternoon, everybody. All right, thank you. You know, Todd Whitaker this morning talked about the impact of our greatest teachers in our building. I am pleased to introduce Annie Ray. And in her remarks this afternoon, Annie will provide you a lot of information about herself and her school, which is our school. I am the proud principal at Annandale High School, where Annie is an orchestra teacher. As administrators, as leaders, Annie brings Todd Whitaker's words and Dr. Jones's words to life. She is an amazing teacher who is passionate and curious, and she's had a huge impact on not only our students and our staff, but our community, our division, and as you will soon see, the Commonwealth of Virginia and beyond. So please join me in welcoming Annie Ray to the podium for today's lunch speech.
Good. Oh, magic. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Annie Ray, and I am the Orchestra Director and Performing Arts Department Chair at Annandale High School. I have also had the honor of being named the Secondary Teacher of the Year for Fairfax County Public Schools in 2023, and I am the 2024 GRAMMY Music Educator Award winner. Yeah. I have to run immediately after the speech today to drive across Virginia to go and speak in front of another great group of people today. But please know my inbox is open. I'm always open to connecting and collaborating with people, and I'm an open book. But with all of this, I'm also better known as the teacher who got to hug Taylor Swift. I am honored that I get to teach at a school where students come from 66 different countries, speak 59 different languages, and our programs are made up of a vibrant mix of backgrounds, perspectives, and strengths. 81% of our students speak a language other than English at home, and over 70% of our students fall below the poverty line. And in a world where that diversity can sometimes lead to conflict, investing in the whole student and meeting every student where they are at has been our foundation for understanding, community, and progress. I was asked today to speak on how great leaders make great teachers, and if I am being honest, it is very uncomfortable to talk about what it means to be a great leader. While being a great leader isn't the easiest thing to pretend to be an expert on, I do know I strive every day in my classroom to instill a servant leadership mindset in my students, and it's something I try to exemplify in myself. I think at the most simplistic level, being a great leader means to respond to who is in front of you and shape your approach, a willingness to change, but be sure of your direction. So instead of telling you all about how I am a great leader, I am going to tell you the stories of 3 students who fully embraced everything Annandale has to offer them. So-san is a recent Annandale graduate, and I'm lucky enough to have been her teacher for 3 years, 2 in orchestra, after convincing her to join us while I was her leadership teacher. At first glance, when you hear all of So-san's obstacles, many would underestimate her potential or be wary of her chances. She is an Afghan refugee and started working as a cashier her sophomore year to support her family, and her senior year was working as a barista and driving over an hour one way to get to school when her family unexpectedly moved. But So-san is the definition of what Annandale is all about. Success can come from anyone, anywhere. You just need to give them a voice. It's proven that involving students from historically resilient populations in school activities is essential for nurturing their success. These students, who have often faced systematic challenges, bring unique perspectives and strengths to our school by actively engaging them in electives like orchestra, identifying student leaders who would otherwise not think of themselves as that, and seeing a student as an individual. We not only recognize and validate their experiences, but also empower them to leverage their resilience in incredible ways. Participation in school activities builds a sense of belonging, encourages academic motivation, creating a more inclusive and dynamic learning community, and takes more than just access to create buy-in. You have to invite a student individually and by name, and when they don't show up, invite them again. and again until you are walking them to the room yourself, sitting down with them and guiding them through the first fumbling few notes one by one, just like I did with Sosan. And Annandale has prioritized creating these accessible and supportive spaces where students can thrive, ensuring their voices are heard and that they want to be at school because they are being seen. At Annandale, we not only have academic intervention, but involvement intervention with our monthly during the school day activities day to battle chronic absenteeism. In many ways, Annandale is a mirror of the Suzuki Triangle approach to string pedagogy. We intentionally and are always trying to reach into and connect in meaningful, authentic ways to the community. We have our food pantry, parent liaison offices and events, and our parent orchestra, which annually teaches over 200 caregivers in Fairfax County Public Schools how to play their students' instrument for the very first time. Here is the proof on how this works via the lens that I am most comfortable with, talking about absenteeism and what happens when you involve students in music or performing arts. There is a report that I'm going to give you all a QR code for. It's also in your app, but this is proof about the impact that involving students in the performing arts for 4 years has on chronic absenteeism. This graph is just a complete overview of it. This report demonstrates a significant correlation between career art students or students involved in the arts for 4 years and improved chronic absenteeism rates. Seniors from each year since 2020 who are career art students show between 32.3% and 50.8% lower chronic absenteeism rates than those who are not. Additionally, every senior class for each year shows a significant statistical advantage for the career art students. These findings held when comparing the data across multiple key variables such as race, ethnicity, sex, free and reduced price meals, and English language learners. It's true for them all. And there can be many reasons for this. Maybe it's a student having a close teacher relationship for 4 years in the orchestra room, just like Annandale puts our homeroom class with the same teacher for 4 years. Maybe it's having the students plugged into school activities, just like Annandale encourages student school involvement with activity days. And maybe it's because arts are unique in that it meets people where they're at and is individual to them, but unites us all on a level that we cannot understand until we've been brave enough to allow ourselves to experience discomfort and be vulnerable to the process. You know, music is so humbling because to learn how to be great at it, you first have to be very bad at it. And you have to do it very loudly where everyone can hear. We're asking students to be incredibly brave and in a time where they're very much inward, be bold and own their learning process out loud. When students struggle with a math problem, they can do so privately in their head. But when students struggle with a new music skill, they quickly have to get comfortable with being outward and bold to make progress. And Sosan internalized and celebrated the idea of boldly trying in everything she did. When I say she was plugged into our school and owned her learning process out loud, it is an understatement. Look at all those graduation cords. She served as a student equity ambassador, was in school leadership, orchestra, Triumph Music Honor Society, orchestra leadership, executive member for her graduating class, and was on the tennis team, cross country, and indoor track, on top of all of those other things that I said. Being interviewed by Fairfax County Public Schools at her graduation, here's what she had to say about her time at Annandale. I've experienced everything here. Every teacher has had a new opportunity, pushing me to my limit in whatever field I was in, and they listened to my perspective. I want other students to know that everyone is there to help you, to allow you to extend your wings. She also said that she might, too, want to be a music educator one day. Now, meet Carlos. Carlos is also a cellist, there seems to be a theme here with that, and joined orchestra his sophomore year with no prior music experience. He struggled with absenteeism, grades in his classes, and like Sosan, had to drive about an hour to school every day his senior year after his family unexpectedly moved. But almost every day when I walked into my classroom and flipped on the lights, he was sitting in my room in the dark, catching a few more Z's or listening to music on YouTube, trying to squeak out a song on the cello. To give you a glimpse into our orchestra program, I have established a partnership with a local nonprofit, Music for Life, to give our students free 30-minute private lessons once a week during the school day. This is to address the inequity our students face where other programs have parents who pay out of pocket for after-school lessons to prepare their students for district auditions or college scholarships. The majority of our students have neither the luxury of financial ability nor often the overlooked piece, time. Unlike the previous years where beginners were just thrown into a non-beginner orchestra and being asked to figure it out while starting a brand new instrument while the students who have played before, Annandale saw me teaching these new musicians one-on-one outside the school day during COVID to get them caught up, and knew the value of pivoting to a model with a true beginner orchestra to set students up for success. That, paired with being our small pilot private lesson program, Carlos developed a solid foundation instead of being in survival mode. With this platform, he musically soared and jumped to one of our most advanced ensembles the following year, something that would normally take students years to get into. And encouraged by Carlos' progress, we took the next step. After all, change does not happen without a chance. We started running a program for over 60 students. And when we dove into that intentional intervention, we found so much success because they have the confidence in their knowledge and are not afraid to figure out what they do not know. Our orchestra students embody intrinsic learning with their independently arranged sectionals and student-run ensembles. A record number of Annandale students made district honor orchestra, and we graduated over 40 students from the orchestra program this year, with 12 of them going on into music in some capacity in college. We have almost 100% retention rate as the students make their way from being freshmen to seniors. And this mirrors Annandale's approach to intentional support. Not yet another intervention class pulling a generalized group of students from electives, but teaching to the whole student and abiding by the philosophy of quality over quantity. At Annandale, we have our study hall block that most schools have, but instead of doing independent study for all students, we pull specific students for remediation. We use evidence of student learning to respond to the needs of over 2,200 individual students, which has had a big impact on student behavior and student learning. Multiple times throughout the year, we re-examine students' data and determine what levels of academic, behavior, and wellness support they may need next. And working in a school with significant challenges mean that some of our students struggle in multiple courses. In addition to Pride Time, Annandale has an after-school academic program to meet students who need additional supports. And students who need support and do not often come to school and want to come after. But again, like activities days and following up relentlessly and individually, there is additional administrator support who follow up with the students and families to ensure that they do stay. And this strategic approach has made all the difference. Look at the data. Here on our graph here, we can see that we have a chart that is set up to kind of show us where schools are forecasted with their SOL testing results based on the free and reduced lunch rates at our school. And here, Annandale outperformed in math, in English, and in science. Annandale is the top performing school, actually, against this rate of success. And it's because of the strategic approach of meeting students where they're at with their whole being. Now, back to Carlos. One day after school, I was headed, one of the last cars in the parking lot, and I was headed to my car, and I heard the sound of a cello. Looking around, I saw Carlos outside waiting for his ride home. He was not sitting on his phone, endlessly scrolling through TikTok or tuning out the world with his headphones in. He was sitting, publicly practicing, boldly owning his learning for all to see. Something I have been contemplating lately is that I am so lucky that I am in a classroom where I have the magic of students' attention for 80 minutes without any devices. It is paper and ink, and if they are playing, they are not reaching for their phones. I get 80 minutes of just them. I get 80 minutes of them trying and failing and laughing and celebrating process and not being afraid to be seen trying. In my class, they soon discover that participating in art is very different than consuming art. After graduation, Carlos apologized for not being able to afford a gift to say goodbye to me, and he left a note instead. You truly helped me escape my shell through the cello. I was actually told by many of my older friends that they witnessed a great change in me after I began learning. I was a very bad kid, which is not true. Now you're kind, calm, patient. I was able to put my stored energy and emotions into something which made me believe in myself for the very first time. Little does he know, those words were the greatest gift of all. Now, a sidetrack from hearing from my students, have you all heard about the parable of acres of diamonds? The parable of acres of diamonds is a story told by Russell H. Conwell and revolves around a farmer who lived in Persia. He heard tales of great wealth and riches to be found in the form of diamonds, and he has become so obsessed with the idea of finding these gems that he sold his farm and set off in search of them. He traveled far and wide, spending his entire fortune and eventually dying penniless and despairing, never having found the diamonds he sought. Meanwhile, the person who bought the farmer's original land discovered an unusual rock on the property. This rock turned out to be a diamond, and further exploration revealed that the farm was sitting on a vast diamond mine, one of the richest in history. Our schools, as they are full of untapped diamonds too. Meet Kevin. Kevin is a founding member of my Crescendo Orchestra program, an orchestra class for students in our Cat B special education department. To make sure we're all on the same page, Cat B is the shortened term for students in the Category B department. These students have significant or severe disabilities, and many have limited verbal communication or use only gestural communication. Cat B students are not often included in general education classrooms and are not given spaces in their schedules for electives such as orchestra. Crescendo Orchestra began out of the pandemic and virtual teaching, this weird in-between time where it felt like the world and music stopped. And in that void, I discovered freedom to start new projects, create and rediscover what music education is all about. After multiple weeks of talks with parents, supervisors, and the Cat B department teachers, we launched Crescendo Orchestra. Crescendo in music means to go from soft to loud, or in our case, starting smaller and getting bigger, going further than anyone thought possible. A typical block schedule, 80-minute course, just like every elective at our school, that changed everything about the way I approach teaching. How are you leveraging the acres of diamonds in your building? I challenge you with this statement. Some of the best teachers in your building are your performing arts teachers. And I'm going to invite Sean DeRose to share with you his perspective.
Well, thank you, Amy. Annie, I'm first humbled. I didn't see this full presentation as she was giving it. A number of years ago at a conference, a VASSP conference, I heard about someone talking about leveraging the strengths of people who are hiding in plain sight. Some of your best teachers, and obviously as you can see, the case at Annandale, and I challenge you to discover some of the best teachers who are living in plain sight in your buildings. And let's think a little bit about the why. First, performing arts teachers are some of your best teachers in your building. They are skilled at planning high academic levels for all of their students to access, not just some students, but all of these students who are ready to access tasks. All of their band students or orchestra students or theater students, all of them are working for the majority of class time on that high-level task. Chances are pretty good the teacher is not spending the majority of time talking at students. Instead, students are doing the work. But above and beyond what may seem like a given to many of us, let's talk about how these teachers ensure students learn, teachers like Annie. If you were to visit any performing arts classroom, you would see teachers regularly using evidence of student learning that Annie talked about to implement scaffolds and to provide targeted, ongoing feedback. Because students have been set up in performing arts classes to do the work, to practice again and again. The teacher uses that time to meet students' differentiated needs in the moment, provide them feedback to help them get better, provide scaffolds to support students' needs, and remove those scaffolds when they're not needed anymore. So just think about this for a second. From one building leader to another, ensuring all students spend the majority of time working on high-level academic tasks, keeping keen observations of students learning, using evidence of student learning to provide targeted feedback and scaffolds, and then removing scaffolds when students demonstrate they can do that high-level task without them. This is high-quality instruction. And this is what we want every one of our teachers in our building. They want them to be equipped to implement this every day in every classroom.
And I'm so lucky to teach at a school that recognizes and cultivates leadership among our staff at the school and highlights this as all equally. It's not about the awards or leading a session for a staff meeting, but the small interactions in between that matters the most, that result in things like this email I got from a science teacher at our school. When you have time, could you answer any of these questions? Can you tell me how to teach students to manipulate musical instruments, particularly when you're instructing a larger group of students? In science, we have a lot of equipment. Many science teachers will perform a whole class demonstration. Some will use videos, and often the approach is a bit random. When I first began teaching in 2005, my older colleagues had come into teaching during the space race, and they placed a really high value on hands-on experimentation. In recent years, I've seen teachers step away from this practice. I still believe in it, and it seems to me like there is a parallel in music instruction. Most science laboratory procedures require fine motor skills, good coordination, focus and attention to detail. I'm a musician, and Sean, you put my stuff out of line. I see these skills as being very similar. This is a part of my work at Annandale I want to refine next year. To get an email like that was some of the most validating feedback I have ever gotten from a colleague. A science teacher reached out to a music teacher and asked for advice in the classroom. So when we talk about how great leaders make great teachers, it's actually about how great leaders involve every part of our triangle, give every component individual recognition and intentional support, and recognize the acres of diamonds that they already have to make united change. Annandale Crescendo and Parent Orchestras only developed because I was given the flexibility and space to be a leader and an innovator to make systematic change. And Kevin, his love for his cello changed what every day looks like for him. When students age out at 22 from our Crescendo program, they're either given post-secondary services to work on life skills or go to a career center to transition into the workforce. Kevin's family was encouraged to follow the post-secondary services, but after he graduated, he's come back as my instructional assistant and to help me with Crescendo Orchestra, a chance for an independent job that was originally told that was not the best fit for him. As an education system, we must adjust our current practices on how we meet our triangle where they are at and implore those in it to strive to go further than they ever thought possible. And the performing arts classrooms are a sanctuary where this work is already happening. Our classrooms are where the in-betweens come to life and where students can learn perseverance and how to sit with the discomfort of not being good at something immediately. As long as we're willing to slow down and seek the acres of diamonds already before us. Thank you.
Wow. One more round of applause for Annie Ray. Congratulations, Annie. Oh, to fill our buildings with Sean's and Annie's would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?